Block has released a financial report on Bitcoin. It's 19 pages in total, but there are a few slides that we want to check out today, specifically talking about why people do not buy Bitcoin today. Let's see if we can pull up the report and look at 2 pages in particular. So here's one page from the report that I thought was particularly interesting from Block. They said the lack of Bitcoin knowledge is the top reason people do not buy it, right? So 51% of the people that were chosen for this survey said they don't know enough about it, right? There's other reasons like cybersecurity or too much price volatility, uncertain around regulatory outlook, etc. But 51% of the people that said they have not bought Bitcoin said that they don't know much about it. And if we go to the next chart, there's another one here that talks about the level of knowledge that impacts Bitcoin purchasing. So the knowledge levels and intent to buy. The percent who are likely to purchase Bitcoin in the next 12 months, fair to expert levels of cryptocurrency knowledge, 41%. But when you move to the group that has limited to no knowledge of cryptocurrency, it's 8% are likely, right? So the odds of someone purchasing Bitcoin specifically or crypto in general within the next 12 months based on their knowledge base changes dramatically, right? You go from 41% to just 8%. And I think this speaks to the broader point of what we were talking about earlier, which is education around Bitcoin, but finance in general is the number one thing that we could be doing, bar none, right? Because not only do people not understand what's happening to them from an inflation standpoint, they're not budgeting correctly in a lot of cases. They don't understand what investable assets do, how compound interest works. Like there's a million things you can talk about, but Bitcoin is a perfect example of the amount of people that gain knowledge about it, go down that rabbit hole, learn about it, and purchase it is probably higher than most other industries at this point because of the value add that they have and the selling points of money that can not be manipulated, right? Decentralized money that your government cannot interfere with, money that is peer-to-peer and does not take an intermediary in between, right? So there's like, once you figure out exactly how it works, it's almost like a light bulb goes off and you're like, oh shit, like this makes sense. Like I should probably start checking this out a little more, and you learn and you learn and you learn. And maybe you end up buying or maybe you don't. But the point is, if you have no knowledge, we just saw from the report, your likelihood of buying is 8% in the next 12 months, right? So I think financial education in general, and when it comes to crypto and Bitcoin specifically, is the most important thing we could be doing. It can quite literally change lives, quite literally, because not only are you getting people more educated, but you're putting them in a better financial position, which helps them, which helps their family, which could help generations of people if you do it in the correct way. So I think that if the schools aren't going to teach you this, if the universities aren't going to teach you this, if you're not going to learn this from an educational structure that we have in the United States today, it's up to you. And it's never been easier to learn, right? This is a YouTube show. This is open to anyone. This is open borders. You can literally log in from anywhere in the world that has a connection to YouTube and you can watch this video. You can do this with millions of other people that are creating content in a similar fashion. And whether it's Bitcoin or something else, I think financial education is really the sticking point of what people need to be focused on. What do you think, John?
I agree. It brings me back to the quote of Henry Ford that I thought about while you were talking, which is, it is well enough that if people of the nation do not understand banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. And it talks about just the education of people not understanding what is really happening. And that's why I'm honestly glad that I found one Bitcoin for the technology and the asset and the price appreciation and everything else. But also it led me down the rabbit hole of a bunch of other things. So it led me down the rabbit hole of inflation and getting off the gold standard and all these things that kind of go along with what Bitcoin can do. It just leads you down this rabbit hole or this path to just learn more and more about our monetary system, the global monetary system, how everything's work, how our communications channels, how is money actually transmitted, who are the middlemen that are just transmitting, taking fees of your money, right? They are providing a service, but they take fees a lot of the time that is unnecessary, right? So it goes back to harping on education. I always think about like, what can you do from the education standpoint? It's one of the reasons why we obviously started this show, but it's really, what can you do from an education standpoint to help the next person, to help the next generation, and setting up those things and those structures, I think, is the best thing that you could possibly do.
Yeah, I think in a lot of cases too, the lack of interest in it is a problem, right? But I think that lack of interest comes from not knowing the consequences, right? So people are always like, I talk to people, my friends don't want to talk about this, no one else wants to talk about this. Bitcoin specifically, they think I'm annoying. But the idea, I think, needs to be reframed where you talk about the consequences of not understanding this. And not even Bitcoin specifically, but just financial education, right? So from everything that I just mentioned, I guarantee if you show someone or you explain to someone exactly what is happening from a money printing perspective, how much money was injected into the economy, what that did to asset prices, who benefited the most and who got hurt the most, that's like the only selling point you need, right? Yeah. For someone that doesn't invest, for someone that doesn't care about investing, for someone that doesn't care about financial education, those are very obvious selling points, right? Your wealth is being devalued away. Everything you're buying is getting more expensive around you, and you're not getting a raise, right? You're literally better off than you were. While everyone else around you is making money and was pumped up last year, their 401ks were going to all-time highs, their brokerage accounts were going to all-time highs, their crypto accounts were going to all-time highs. You were sitting there and you were in a worse off financial position because maybe you got a 2% raise, a 5% raise, but at the end of the day, everything you're buying is more expensive. You're in a shittier situation. Asset prices have gone up. You didn't benefit from that. So I think it's more about reframing it from, hey, let me teach you about Bitcoin. And it's, hey, let me show you the consequences of not being financially educated and taking control of your own financial life. I think that's a better way to frame it rather than just trying to teach people about Bitcoin.